Today, we're asking ourselves, how can we become that family who cheer each other on from the sidelines and always bring out the best in each other? It's all coming up on today's episode of Mum Show, so stay tuned. And a very warm welcome to the Mum Show. My name's Marina, and today I'm joined by Catherine Hill from Care from the Family and Hope Plum from Aleos. And today we're having a chat about how we can really help our family to thrive and create that vision that brings out the best for our family. Welcome, first of all.
Great to be with you.
I'm really excited because for the last few weeks and over the last past episodes, we've really been chatting about different things we can implement in our family to help create good, healthy habits and create more the family environment that we want to be a part of. But today's a really good opportunity to kind of set the vision, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like this episode in terms of the subject matter because I'm quite a big picture person and I love thinking about the whole picture, but particularly the destination. So any journey in life, you start with the end in mind, so you know where you're heading. And that is as true, I think, for family life as any other journey that we're on.
I think that's so important. I think for me, I'm quite a list writer. So the tasks that I need to do during the day, I'm really quite specific about that. But I think there's definitely something for me to learn today in kind of looking at how we create more of a vision as a whole family. So yeah, I'm really excited to get stuck in.
It's funny, isn't it? I remember my mum, she's got like this massive Bible that she has through the years. And, it's like a really old-fashioned one with all the books of the Bible in like little numbered orders and all this sort of thing. And I was looking through it and I found pictures that I'd done from when I was like 2 years old or 3 years old, and everything I'd ever created was in this Bible, along with my 3 sisters, so it was now pretty thick and weathered. But one of the things I found were different pieces of paper where she'd written ideas of sort of like what she was visioning for us for the future, and there was one piece of paper and it literally had everyone's name in the family and just a sentence next to it of something that she really wanted to, purposefully plant into us. And it was really exciting to kind of look at that and say, oh, wow, you're right. All those years ago. I mean, Catherine, you're grandma now.
Are you
grandma or nanny?
No, neither, actually. Granny. I am granny. Yes, well, they can't speak yet. So when they speak, they'll probably have their own idea. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be granny.
You're granny. It's a good choice. So do you have anything that you were kind of, holding in your heart when you were raising a young family? And have you seen that grow into fruition as they're older?
Such a good question. I think my biggest desire for our family was to be a place where they wanted to be together, where we could forgive each other and mess up and start again, where we could laugh and have fun. And I love it that, it was often World War III when they were little, but now they're older, they want to be there and they want to come together. And I think that really delights me more than anything else. And that was one of the hopes, I think, that I really had for our family.
That's really encouraging, don't you think, Hope?
I love that. I think
you can have World War III and it's still
yes, cool. Absolutely. That's where we are at the moment. I think we've all been in the house for a while in the last few months, so things kind of erupt a bit quicker, I think, than they would have done normally. But I can totally relate to that, Catherine. That idea of I want the kids to know that they can say things, that our home is a place where they can say things, where they can mess up, where they can make mistakes, and just to have that openness and for them to want to come back home when they're older. Gosh, that's so my prayer.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
I think so often, though, family life is so overwhelming and we're so busy and we're going from, one child's needs to the next. And it takes a bit of discipline to step back and to think, what is it that we're doing and what's our bigger bigger vision. At Care for the Family, we have what I think is a lovely phrase. We say, as mums, we're not raising children, we're not even raising teenagers, we're raising adults. And I think if we have our goal on that and the kind of character that we're trying to grow and call out from our children, then I think that helps us in the kind of melee of when it all seems to be a bit of a stress and a hassle. Just have that long-term view.
Yeah, it kind of helps, doesn't it, to say, what do I want to pick? What am I painting? And what do I need to do to get there? I think one of the things in my family, I know my children are very creative, they're very resourceful, they're very industrious. And I really want them to feel like they can sound off of me. Like, I'm sure when they're older, they're going to do some really exciting stuff. I want myself to be available to them, that their projects excite me and that I'm interested in them. And part of what I'm really aware of now is those times when I have like put lots of pressure on and there's conflict over getting tasks done, or, you know, oh, mum's in the room, so we're going to have to work a certain way. And I always kind of try to remind myself, like, I'm trying to build a relationship where, as a family, you know, we're not always going to be in each other's pockets, and that's fine. But the sense that something goes wrong and they're like, mum and dad have our backs, not we have to hide this from mum and dad, and try and think, so when they're problem solving, how do I create that now? And create that pattern now. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because unless we do it intentionally, I can't personally do it in the moment. I have to have that kind of, you know, backlog of thinking behind me first.
Yeah, I think I can definitely relate to that. I think, Catherine, as you said, I think life can be so hectic and we kind of lurch from one thing to the other, like the school run, and then after school there's swimming and dance. And I think the last few months we have all been forced to slow down, haven't we? And actually, you know, I remember when lockdown started and all of a sudden everything was being cancelled. We were getting emails from, you know, like swimming and dance, and this isn't on and this isn't on anymore. And a kind of a bit of a relief came over me, to be honest. And I don't think we realised quite how busy we are until you can't do that stuff anymore. And actually, we were able to have moments where we could just be and talk. And actually, like you say, Marina, you call on past experiences or realise that this is a moment where I can be intentional with what I say. I think an example would be my kids are, I've got twins who are 9 and an 8-year-old as well, well, she'll be 8 very soon. And they're very interested in language at the moment, and particularly swear words. And obviously you do as much as you can at home, but then they're out there in the big wide world getting influenced by whoever, and so they come home and want to know about this word and that word. And I definitely grew up in a family where it was, you know, we don't talk about that, don't say that word. And we've had conversations really recently where my youngest said to me, "Mum, what does this word mean?" And in the moment I was like, my baby coming out with this word. There's this wave of like sickness, and actually just took a breath and said, that's really not a very nice word, and this is why it's offensive to people, and actually not jumping on it and don't say that and that's rude. And I think, yeah, being intentional in the moment and just taking a breath, I think, is so important for the bigger picture. I don't want them to think, oh, I can't say something.
That's it.
I'm scared to say this in front of mum and dad. Actually just creating that culture of it's okay, we can talk about it. And yeah, putting boundaries in place, but also wanting them to flourish within those boundaries. I think it's a fine line, isn't it? And I don't know, we'll see if we're managing it okay.
I think what you're saying, at the heart of that is about our values.
Yeah.
And I think the values that we have as parents are like the anchor in our children's lives. They're the thing that is going to help them make wise decisions when we're not there at their shoulder. So in your example, you know, you say, well, that's not the way we talk in our home. There's this lovely phrase that says values are caught, not taught. And so it's as we're role models and as we model the things that we think are important, so whether that is how we treat other people, how we treat people who have less than us or who are vulnerable, if we have a faith, that's important to us, what we think about the environment, all those things, they will be listening and they'll be watching us. And those values are the things that will stand them in good stead, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's I love that phrase, taught, caught, not taught, because it is so true. Some of the things that I think you should know this, because I've harped on for ages, like, you should really know that, and you know that it just goes in one ear and out the other. And yet it's funny you're saying about the swearing, because my son loves cars, and he wanted to learn about cars, and there's a great British car programme that sometimes slips in inappropriate language. And when he first saw it, I was kind of like, oh gosh. And then my daughter loved it. And, I was in a little bit of conflict about them watching something. And I just let it go, because the value that they were getting from the car programme was worth it. And we talked a little bit about it. And I didn't really lay the law down specifically. I just said, oh, well, we don't use those words, and explained why. And I said to my husband a few months later, they've not sworn, they've not used that language. Like, they're hearing it on this programme, but they aren't picking that up. And for me, I just felt like a really big boost that actually we don't have to labour on the values, we just need to show them.
Yeah, and I think we do need to teach. Obviously, it's called and taught, but it is definitely, what we model. I think that they will pick up. We tell them to pick up their coat for the 50th time, still on the floor, and we think they're not listening, but they don't miss a thing.
Yeah,
they notice.
Yeah,
they really do.
You have to have the open conversations, don't you? And you have to have that chat. But I guess it's not ongoing lectures that are really going to put that into place. I mean, would you say, is there any particular value, Catherine, that you wanted to really pop into place, that you look back on and say, well, I'm glad we chose that? And would there be anything that you think, oh, I wish I'd laboured on that a little bit more?
I would say kindness. I think kindness is vastly underrated, and I love it when I see our children being kind. So I think, and I don't think I intentionally thought that is something we're going to model, but it's something when I see them being kind, I just love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, and 100 things I wish I'd done better, definitely. One thing I think, just when you were talking then about the car programme and your reaction to that, one thing I would say that I wish I'd done differently was I was always so concerned for them to do the right thing that I often made their world a bit small. And I came in and you can do that and you can't do that, rather than stepping back and teaching them to make those wise choices themselves and letting them fail and letting them take a few risks, but being there to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping my children as parents will do that better than I did.
Yeah, I think that is the vulnerability in parenting, isn't it? In thinking, I don't know whether you'll sink and swim in this. I try and remind myself that it's easier for them to fail at the mistakes when they're young than to have to meet them for the first time when they're older. And I think a lot of what we're doing when we're setting vision is making space, isn't it? Yeah. It's we value you, you're seen, you're heard, but we're also making space for you to be who you are, so that you're not the first person they run from, but the first person they run to when things get really difficult.
Yeah, I think when they're older, the consequences can be so much bigger, can't they? And I think I lean definitely more towards what you were saying, Catherine, and that kind of making their world quite small and just, wanted to make sure everything's okay and I know exactly where they are and these boundaries, and I keep talking about boundaries, but kind of, keeping within this little box. But I totally hear you when you say you want to allow them to fall, but then it's how do they what are we teaching them to get back up? What's their resilience? How are they turning it around? And the next time they make a decision, how is it going to be different? And I think, gosh, yeah, that's so important. The kindness thing, I think that, at the moment, the world is we keep seeing this banner, don't we? Be kind, and kindness is so important. And I think if we can model that to our children, and then also they go out into the world and are, our little heartbeats out there and just showing kindness to everyone. That's so important. I mean, my son, the other week, they have something called Star of the Week at school. And Archie got Star of the Week for being kind. He always shows kindness to his classmates. And he got into the car and showed me the certificate. And I think I was on the phone at the time. And it was just one of those, oh, well done, really good. And and I saw the certificate on the kitchen side the next day. And I suddenly had a check. And I thought, I didn't make enough of that. And he came down the stairs and I was like, Archie, I'm so sorry. I'm so proud of you. I didn't make a big enough fuss. Let's do this today to celebrate type of thing. And he was like, it was fine, Mummy. You were on the phone. I get it. And it just like,
crushed you even more.
Crushed me even more. But I just, again, those moments, those learning moments of I just need to celebrate him in this moment. I'm so proud of you. And almost to go back over things, I think it's for me to admit that I got something wrong, hopefully models to them that it's okay to say sorry and to admit that you did something in a less than ideal way.
Yeah.
The celebration thing, I think, is another really key thing. I think to be a family that can celebrate each other.
Absolutely.
Ours are a little bit older, so we've got a family WhatsApp group, but I love it when they're cheering each other on that, and you don't have to have a WhatsApp group to do that. You can do it. Birthdays, I think, are a really great time to be really intentional about celebrating that person. And we often will all go around the table and say, what's one thing you love about, whoever it is,
nice.
or write it in the card or whatever. But using our words to, just to all be, we're a team, we're all together, and, we cheer each other on.
It's so important, isn't it? It's funny talking, looking at how we can go back and how we can be intentional where we forgot to be. We had a moment where my daughter was at a go-karting alley. I'm really talking about cars right now, aren't I? It's all on my mind. She was at a go-karting alley and her dad and her brother were driving, and she was waiting around at the top. And while she was there, she saw some teenagers being very aggressive with a cat. And my daughter's a real animal lover, and actually nature's a really big value in our family, and we would try and be in nature every day. We would try and, like, my children know, they teach me about the names of birds and things like that. We're big nature lovers. And she was all by herself, and there was a big group of teenagers, and she waited and she watched to see what would happen. The last straw was somebody kicked the cat. And so she went over there and she said to them, you need to stop being unkind to the cat. And it was all in Spanish because she wasn't even in her own native tongue, which is pretty intense. She said, you need to stop being unkind to the cat. And so they just laughed at her because obviously she's tiny, it's embarrassing, she's 11. And then she just stayed there and watched them and she said, no, you need to stop. And so they all left. So then she told me about this and my instant reaction was, what if they'd attacked her? What if they'd have beaten up? What if she's just gone up to all these teenagers? What if that had gone wrong? And so I just went, okay, good to hear that the cat's okay. And then I had to go away and process it. And I was thinking to myself, she's really stood by one of her values. Like, she's really stepped out and done something brave. And I didn't acknowledge that because I was so overwhelmed by what if they'd attacked you, what if you'd have been beaten up, and really had to process that for a while. And in the end, I kind of came to the decision that actually this needs to be recognised, that you did a courageous thing and that you knew and understood what you wanted and what your values were and you were prepared to stand by it. And it was a couple of days later that I had to go back to her and say, well done for doing that. I'm actually really proud of you because whatever it was that you needed to stand up for, you did. And that is something that we value in this family. And that's something that I love. But it took kind of needing to process it out of time almost.
Yeah, I can see that. And but also what I love is being able then, I think you mentioned it, Hope, that when they do mess up, so on the occasion, so it's so great to praise them when they do something that is particularly something like that when you've been courageous. But also on the times that they mess up, knowing that we're a safe place where they can come back and we can pick up the pieces, and the consequences generally are less when they're little. And again, not scooping in and just making it all okay. So there's an example. My son did a paper round, and he was late one day, and I did it for him. Another time, maybe one of them loses their pocket money, and we just replace it. And I remember thinking, one day it's not going to be a paper round. It's going to be getting to work, and it's not going to be their pocket money. It's going to be their mortgage. And if we're always scooping in, so celebrating each other sometimes is letting them learn stuff the hard way, but being there for them to pick up the pieces. I think
it's being that ever-present person but not interfering too much.
Is it helicopter mum? Is that the phrase?
Exactly, that is right. The helicopter parent swooping in.
That's it,
Yeah, and it's so easy to chat about, isn't it? And it's so hard to do.
It really is.
When faced with it, it's a tough one. Okay, well, I'm going to introduce you to a lovely lady called April Joy, and she's going to tell us a little bit about how she enjoys setting up this vision for her and her boys and her husband. So here we are, here's April Joy.
I definitely look back over my life, and my folks have been some of the greatest cheerleaders for me. It makes you live a life where nothing is impossible, where you can reach. And whilst there may be fear in reaching and stretching and going for dreams, which is healthy, there's an assurance of, if they can, why can't I? And I want to create that for my boys, and we intentionally carve that into our life. So I think we all know that family is a huge place where identity is formed, and it's a place of belonging. And we all seek for a place of belonging where I can be who I am and not be judged for it, where I can mess up and make mistakes, where I can fail and be picked up again, where I can be believed in, where people see the best of me. And so we've tried really hard to create that within our home, create an identity, create a sense of belonging, especially in a world where family has come under so much pressure. We can live in a household and spend so much time together, but often it can be distracted time. And so carving out intentional time where we walk and talk, or where we sit around the table and eat, for children to know, in this space I'm seen, in this space I'm valued, and in this space people take the time to understand me, and who I am is okay. My dad is nearly in his 70s, and he can still hear the voice of his dad cheering on the football sideline. That's 60 plus years ago. And I think that shows us the power of showing up for our kids. You mattered, so I was there. Whether it's a football game, whether it's a competition, whether it's at the end of the school day, every child needs to know they are worthy and valuable enough for the adult in their life to show up physically, as well as being present, being available. If I can raise 3 young men that love themselves, because that's healthy, and we have to have a healthy love and respect for who we are, that love God and value his principles and his way of living, and that love other people. If we can build those 3 into who they are, then I think you can stand back and say, job well done.
I love that she takes the moment to say, then I can say job well done. It's like, it's really processed of what I want to achieve and what's going to make me feel like, yeah, I've done a really good job at the end.
Yeah, it's lovely. It was really moving. I think though, and I totally agree with that. But we also can't put our whole everything on our how our children turn out. If our identity becomes really wrapped up with how what they're achieving or not, then we've got that when we can give it our absolute best shot. But honestly, I know the best parents who have got kids who are breaking their hearts, and I know ones who have broken every rule in the book, and their kids are doing just fine. So, which is really annoying. But yeah, we give it our absolute best shot, and we want our kids to know that whatever happens, we've got their back.
Yeah.
But we can't do it for them.
Yeah.
That takes the pressure off though, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, we do our best with everything, and if you have a faith, we pray and you instill those values into the kids, and then we just have to let them go, don't you? And I think actually that's quite relieving.
Yeah.
I know I've heard that so many times, Catherine, but to hear you say it again, it's just like, oh, thank you. Thank goodness.
It's that thing of letting them go. It's so hard, and it feels like it's going to be so far away when they're little. But I love talking about something I call parenting with elastic. And so it's gradually allowing them more independence as they get older, and giving them those choices, so that when they are in that position to be able to stand on their own 2 feet long term, they've had the practice at doing it. And I think one of my favourite little phrases is from a journalist called Hodding Carter, and he said this. He said, there are two things that we should give our children. One is roots and the other wings.
Yeah.
And I think if that's all the things we've been talking about, isn't it? But that would be, I think, a really great one to hang on to as we cheer them on.
I love that. I love what you're saying there. I know that as a younger mum, I'm not going to say young mum because I still am, but as a younger mum, I did own all my children's choices, and all their mistakes were my mistakes, and all their situations were my situations, and it really helped me a lot when I understood, no, we're not the same. You have your own life, and I'm going to love you passionately, and I'm going to be your safe place constantly that I can. You know, we do our best, but your mistakes aren't my mistakes. Your choices aren't my choices, and that's not going to upturn the apple cart. We're still here, we're still family, and we're still home. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed hearing in April speaking was actually about the intentionality of creating something for kids to come back to. And there's really something in creating, like traditions or routines that children know at the end of the day, this is what home feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree, yeah. I think we've... Again, I keep referring back to, the last 6 months of 2020, but I think, again, that's really helped us as a family to create some traditions that before we just didn't really have time for. Going from one thing to the other, I think Sunday lunch for us has been really important. So I know we all ate a lot of food during lockdown, but kind of creating that moment around a Sunday where no matter what was going on, we all sat around together. We've kept that going, and going out for walks together as a family. I know, Marina, you guys are quite an outdoors family, and I love the outdoors, but I wouldn't say it's a priority for us. But we live kind of out in the countryside, so we're very blessed to have beautiful scenery around us. And actually during lockdown, because we were made to be inside, actually we were really intentional about let's get our hour of exercise outside. And we've kept that up, the kids going for bike rides and stuff. And I think, those traditions are so... They're anchoring, aren't they? And I think we just need to... I think you have to fight for them as well, I would say. It's very easy, kind of now restrictions have lifted a bit, it's very easy to slip back into that, we're just too busy to do this, that and the other. But actually, being intentional has become... I just need to think about how are we going to do that today? How are we going to fit it in?
I love that anchoring phrase, and I think traditions, you're absolutely right, Hope, they give our children that sense of identity, that sense of belonging. When we always say at Care for the Family, if you ask anyone to look back, if we asked any of us, I reckon, to look back on our own childhoods, we would soon come up with these little two words, we always.
Yes.
So we always had fish and chips, when we were on holiday. We always had, a strawberry birthday cake or whatever the thing was. And it's often in those little things of family life that the traditions, sometimes around intentional things like Christmas or birthdays, but often we used to have buns after school. Our kids, there was, on the way back from school on a Friday, we'd go to the bakery and they'd buy a donut. And that just became a really fun thing to do. And then on a Friday night, we'd have something called family night, and we'd make pizza or burgers and we'd watch a film together. And, it's not rocket science, is it? But those things weave themselves into our children's lives and our sense of team and family.
Do you find that that's something that has held you together in the future? Because we're all looking ahead at the moment, aren't we? So what have you found doing that when you were raising young children has resulted in with your adult children?
Well, funnily enough, now they are parents. Two of them are parents themselves. One tradition we had was they were around food, actually, but they were around breakfast on a Saturday morning, and I know they're going to do that with their kids. And just little things. We've got this little birthday banner that we would put up when it was somebody's birthday, and it is the most torn, bedraggled thing. And I tried to throw it away a couple of years ago, and there was outcry. You can't throw it away. Got to have this thing up. So I would say all those little things, and some I think we create new things. Some maybe we've brought from our own families of origin, but they're the things that make us a family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have found in having had a year where things are upturned in my extended family, one of the things that my mum did was to create a Zoom meeting every Sunday. And I thought it's interesting because we always had Sunday lunch together. And even when the world turns a little bit different, putting those traditions in can really hold things into place, can't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this one. I'm excited to go and implement some new things in my family. It's been really helpful. And thank you as well for joining us on this Mum Show journey. We hope that you have been blessed and encouraged by some of what you've heard, and we wish you the very best in carving out some ideas for your family. Take care.